One thing you'll learn the longer you're on this earth is that history can and does constantly repeat itself. Many years ago, Bear Bryant stormed out of Kentucky and to Texas A&M because Adolph Rupp got a Cadillac and he got a cigarette lighter at the end of the year and knew that Kentucky was a basketball school and not a football school. Well, today, and I doubt this will happen, but in ever continuing to promote that it is a basketball school, their head coach, John Calipari, and I teased this earlier in the show during Off the Radar, has said that he no longer wants to wait for athletic director Mitch Barnhart to greenlight the project for his on-campus practice facility, which he wants to be right in the middle of campus. He will go fundraise for it if he has to, and he will get some of his 50-some NBA draft picks who've earned more than $2 billion as pros to contribute. He says the state deserves that. Everybody should be behind this. Our administration, look, our baseball facility might be the nicest in the country, and I'm happy about that. Our football facility, we spent $200 million. Soccer, unbelievable. Now the track, I love it. And now I would say the administration should be like, we're doing this. How about the state? If this is the University of Kentucky and it's the basketball program for the state, which it is, I'm sure Louisville fans are loving that. We're in. We're going to invest. I'll tell you right now, Anthony Davis gave $350,000 on a text to me for flood relief. Do you know what our former players would do? They just got to see it. What is it? So it's the next challenge. And then he said this. And the reason is this is a basketball school. It's always been that. Alabama's a football school. So is Georgia. I mean, they are. No disrespect to our football team. I hope they win 10 games and go to bowls. At the end of the day, that makes my job easier, and it makes the job of all of us easier. But this is a basketball school, and so we need to keep moving that direction and keep doing what we're doing. Mark Stoops, the football coach, tweeted, basketball school? I thought we competed in the SEC. Hashtag 4 straight postseason wins. But John Calipari, and look, I believe he'll get it done. I mean, they're going to build what is going to be palatial. They had a flood, and they had leaks in the roof. The floods in Kentucky is going on right now, but they had leaks in the roof in their practice facility a few years ago and had to cancel practice, and he's kind of been on it since then. But one thing you'll know about John Calipari, he is not afraid to say what's on his mind and be very bold in that. And that certainly is when you somehow innocently rope in, not innocently, but like rope in all your other programs and say, why hasn't this happened for basketball?
We talked at the very beginning about programs that use history to win every argument. Right now, Kentucky basketball is one of those programs.
Yeah.
I mean, they are arguably one of the, whatever direction you want to go, I don't really care, greatest basketball programs of all time. But they haven't won jack squat, basically, with Calipari there. I mean, they
won. Yeah.
But, like, not last year.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's you know, it's Kentucky basketball, and it's a big deal. But quite frankly, Mark Stoops has had more success here as of late.
Yeah.
So he's got every right to turn right around. And I'm glad he sent a zinger back Calipari's way. I get that everybody needs what they need. But, yeah, Calipari, for a guy who's not sitting there with a fresh national title in his back pocket, is certainly still acting as though that is the case. And I get it. You got to fight for your guys and fight for your facility and whatever it is you want. There's only so many dollars to go around. But I just love the fact that Mark Stoops isn't taking that S, and he's willing to have fun with it. And I'm sure some of that was fun, probably the majority of it. But there's also some real there as well. I think that's pretty clear that there's probably, if they pass each other in the hallway, respect. But I would imagine there's a little bit of a cold, like, I meant what I said, and yeah, I meant what I said. I don't think there's a standoff incoming, but I think Mark Stoops has every right to feel the way that he does, and Calipari, I don't think it's any surprise that he feels the way that he does, and especially being at a school like Kentucky where basketball is king. I'd probably feel much of the same way, but yeah, I just love the fact that that Mark Stoops is sitting there gun loaded, ready to fire back, so to speak, on social media. That was and that's probably not the best. You know what I'm saying, though, the verbal machinery loaded and ready to fire back.
Well, the other thing I don't want to hear if I'm Mark Stoops and I'm trying to get recruits to come here, and I've got my most loaded team so far, my best quarterback so far.
Well, technically,
yeah. I mean,
sure.
What I think is what I hope is my
best NFL prospect at quarterback.
Yeah, my NFL prospect at quarterback so far. I've got that. At least Mark Stoops. I mean, I know that they had Tim Couch there, but I've got.
I just mean a lot of the Will Levis stuff is all mostly about his NFL career and not really about Kentucky football as much. Is at least what I've found in reading through the literature. Yeah.
So I've got this NFL prospect at quarterback. I want all this stuff. The last thing I need is the head coach of the basketball program, which everybody knows is good, and he's going to use each other to recruit, is saying that the sport you're coming here to play is not that important. They have to fight that off anyway. Look, Mac Brown has to do it in North Carolina all the time. It happens. Nobody wants to be Lance Leipold and have to worry about like the chasm between those two programs and that national championship and worst team in the FBS maybe. But you don't need the head basketball coach saying this program is not as important. It's just not. It's one of those things that it's petty that somebody will use against you, but it's also not what you want to hear, especially when you're on a roll.
Something that will lead to Mark Stoops going and taking another job at a football school one day.
Because he's doing well.
Yeah. Dude, if the Florida State job opens up next year, I think there's a candidate in Kentucky.
He was the DC there. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So, it's a basketball school. All right, well, I'm a football coach in the SEC. I'm going to go to a football program, and I know Florida State's not in the SEC, but I could see where, this is not as big of a deal as it's probably being made out to be.
Yeah.
But I think there's a little underlying something to it for sure. And he responded because of that. So, yeah, I mean, it's great to be a basketball school if that's what you are. And Kentucky's had, a hell of a history in that regard. But, it's also pretty important to have a really good football program, which is not something they're necessarily just fully accustomed to. And so I think that if you're, the Kentucky AD, you're like, all right, boys, let's – culturally, it's good if you're both good. It's good if you both respect each other, and it's not like a tug of war over who gets what. So we'll see if that just fades away. But I liked it again. I just liked that Mark Stoops stood up for himself and didn't let Calipari just run his lips without any sort of a response.
Yeah, I've been in a couple different press conferences where John Calipari was there, covering when they played Baylor in the Elite Eight. I was there for that, and it was interesting the first time where it's equally impressive, and you're like, man, this dude really thinks he's awesome.
Oh yeah,
it's where you listen to him and you're like, wow, because they asked him. I'll always remember this. They asked him a question about AAU basketball and how it was starting to turn into something that was kind of shady when it came to recruiting. And he's like, you call it AAU basketball. That's what you call it. I call it summer basketball. And it kind of turned around like, that's your problem. And I was like, well, it's called.
How very Jimbo Fisher of him and Saban and all these other guys who do the
that's
same
what you call
crap.
It. And you're like, and I was like, man, that was a really, D-head move there. And then I walked away getting on the elevator. I'm like, although I was kind of impressed by that, how he turned the whole press conference around to be like, oh, well, I mean, it's not really what he calls it, and but yeah, it was ridiculous. And then you see times where I was at a game in the Final Four that he lost, and the way he spun out of that one, where he's like, look, this isn't a big deal to me, I just worry about the kids. Like, no, dude, it's a big deal to you. You are getting these top recruits all the time. You're saying there's no problem with one and dones, and it's undoing you right now. Now, yes, you're in the Final Four, but again, ask Bill Self how it feels to win a title and then go forever until you win another one. It's hard. You keep pushing. And, he never pretended like it wasn't a big deal to him. He was like, yeah, starting to get to me. It's those things that you just don't believe. Like, oh, no, I don't. And when they won, he was like, this isn't a big deal to me. It's big for the kids. Dude, you've been doing this for 40 years, and you finally won one, and it's not a big deal to you? Shut up. No one believes that.
Yeah, I could take or leave Calipari. I really could. I respect the dude for what there is to respect, but I'm not entertained by him really in any shape or form. And I think just taking a shot at your own school in a roundabout way, which is clearly not the way that he was thinking of it at the time, is just kind of stupid, especially when they've got a good amount of momentum, potentially a top pick at quarterback, as Stoops points out in his tweet, postseason wins stacking up and a little bit of expectation in the biggest, baddest football conference out there. I mean, that's a job that's been incredible to watch unfold with what Stoops has been able to do and the amount of respect he's been able to earn, even though they're still, of course, a very long way off from being, the top of that league. I mean, shoot, there's reasons for excitement. Why are you trying to dampen the excitement in the same, same place that you are. Like, does Calipari not realize that football being good is good for everybody?
Yeah.
Because guess what? Guess who still makes more money than Kentucky basketball? Kentucky football does.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of rights and things like that. I don't know about fundraising. Fundraising, it might be a different story because it's just different up there. But yeah, I not a huge deal, but definitely you can feel a little bit of that tension there over between those two, and it'll be really interesting to see, how Kentucky football does this season with all of the hype that's pretty much surrounding Will Levis. But yeah, they've got a good thing going, and good on him again for firing back and not bowing to the legendary college basketball coach. I'm sure he didn't know how to even take that. Yeah. I bet he's like, oh, wait, he responded? Yeah. Did he call the school president right afterwards to tattle on him or something? Yeah. I wonder how he took that because I don't think he's very used to it.
Yeah. And look, if Kentucky, they're